sure how it was going to go, but I do remember talking to Joe about this at the beginning of the process, just being like, this is like an actor's dream, is being able to like really work on so many different characters and show that you can transition from one thing to the next to the,
Yeah.
because this
Yeah.
isn't common. You don't get to do something like this very often.
No, I mean, the last time I did it, I was in college, and even that, I was in this musical called Robert Bridegroom. I love it. It's like a 70s bluegrass musical.
Oh
And
my god, so fun.
it's so good. It's like my favorite. But we got to play all of these, we created the ensemble and we were on stage the entire time. But even with that, I was only playing, this one character. I don't remember what her name was, but it still is one of my most favorite shows. And I was so impressionable, as
Yeah.
a freshman or sophomore. And I just remember this show will stay with me forever because
Oh, easily.
it is one of those shows where it is such a dream cast and a dream ensemble, and you feel like you have a say in the process, and that you're heard, and that you're you know understood, and that trust is there. And I keep going back to trust because it's so
Oh, it's huge.
important, especially now with hello, everything that, the world is blowing up. But you need to be able to, as we're like throwing spaghetti against the walls, you
Oh, absolutely.
and
That's a
you
good
know
that's a good way to put it. Just we're gonna
right, seeing what sticks. You have to be able to just like blah, throw yourself out there and feel like an idiot in front of people that you're like,
well, and
this
you
is
know
the
what?
thing, right?
This show was so interesting to me because I never realized that I don't do that.
Mm.
That I kind of eh, I had no idea. Like I've always kind of, most of my experience as of late has been in children's theater,
Yeah,
right? And so I'm always playing the quirky characters, or they're
yeah, yeah, yeah.
really loud. It's really easy to be up here. So to me, it has always felt like I was just throwing out weird things and just going at it,
Oh.
doing all of the weird quirky things. But then doing this and having so many options, working with people that I'd never worked before, working
Mhm.
with Joe who I hadn't worked before, I realized that I had come in thinking how I was going to do things and then realizing that I wasn't allowing myself an actual process. And
Ooh.
what made me realize that was doing King Duncan, because that was so random. I have never played a king before, let alone a Shakespearean king, which I,
Right.
oh,
Welcome.
okay, like how different. And getting into that and realizing that I had to teach myself how to take up space, which I didn't realize that I didn't know how to do. It was so interesting. Yeah,
Ooh.
I had no idea. It blew my mind when I started to figure out that that's why I wasn't able to get into the mindset of King Duncan. It took me a little while to find
Mm.
that and real and tracing that through and connecting that with the fact that I didn't feel like I allowed myself to just have a process and
I
just
love that.
try random things and just to see what happens. And then once I kind of figured that out, then I started to be able to actually explore it and actually allow myself to have a process for
Mhm.
each one. And especially Duncan, that was the one where I felt like I was just a little rigid at first, and then
Well, sure. I mean, because I mean, we start out with these stock characters, and so you're just like, thank God no one's recording it because it's just like, what am I doing? And that's where it's like, leave your ego at the door because
yeah.
I mean, we all go into it with like our idea of like what a witch, a king, a servant, and then we kind of break it down and peel apart the layers and everything, and then it just becomes human, instead of like, I'm a witch.
Yeah, right.
Although we can play with that, but yeah, I know what you're saying. Like as far as the king goes, because you think, I mean, that's where we start out. Is like we're molding this, character, and we're like, here it is. This is what a king looks like, and eventually, you start to peel away the layers. But it does start out, very stiff and
Mhm.
very.
Well, and what was interesting too is that I played men. To
Yeah.
like I played a bunch of sons, I played a king, and learning how to do that and get across a particular energy, but not necessarily like I'm acting like a man, like doing it more in energy and just like
Yeah.
characteristics and presentation, which was really interesting because like I would lower, like deepen my voice a little bit, but I wouldn't like
Oh,
pretend
thank
like I
God.
pretend like I was trying to talk like
Oh
a man.
my God, that would have been so awkward. You like
Ah,
bind and put
no,
on a
be like,
mustache. Like go
"Science,
full
Benjamin,
out.
Bane."
Like
Really convincing, absolutely.
no, you know what's funny is like you're saying this and I'm thinking this was one of the I'm very hard on myself normally.
Yeah.
And this I went into this kind of having the layers already kind of stripped with what was going on in the world and everything, you
That's
know?
fair,
I
yeah,
was so vulnerable and just walking in being like, I'm not going to judge any of this.
right?
And so this was the first time I still hadn't made, and I'm trying not to judge it as like right or wrong, good or bad, but like good actor, bad actor, but I still hadn't made any choices as to who these characters are in my head. So I don't know if I lived like, you know, female or male from night to night. I honestly think it changed every night. And it just
Yeah.
depended on my mood, you know, and what I was feeling at the moment and what was coming out. Cause sometimes I would play and for some reason it was with old what's his name? Old Donald Bain. And who
Dang,
is yeah, who's the king's youngest son and
yeah.
Malcolm's brother. And and I originally went into it like Donald Bain, and it didn't end up same thing with the like, you know, I'm a man and it wasn't like that, but I felt like this masculine energy and it kind of just, you know, in performance kind of lifted off and I was like, I don't think I'm male or female. I don't think I live in either world. I just, you know, it is what it is. I'm just
Yeah.
playing the king's son and we'll figure out what that feels like just
Yeah.
in the body without deciding on a gender or whatever. But it was fun. It was very, you know, just I am this character and I
Mhm.
don't have to do a complete backstory on it for it to be, you know,
Yes.
feel relevant or accurate or it was just a process that I had never I'd never like ventured into
Well, and
before.
see, and that's the whole point though, I think, is allowing yourself to have that process
Mhm.
and make discoveries along the way. Even if that discovery comes on opening night, you know,
Yeah.
or even halfway
Or
through
the
the line
final.
sometimes,
The
you know,
final line. Yeah.
you're gonna come to different conclusions. And I know,
Hmm.
and some of them I thought about backstories and thought of some of them I
Yeah.
focused a lot on just characteristics.
Hmm.
Um, and that influenced a lot of my physicality choices.
Hmm.
So like with Duncan, he's just so warm and such a generous guy. I wanted, yes, have the regality, but I tilted my shoulders. They were like up, but I tilted them forward so that he led with his heart instead of
Right.
leading with his chin necessarily because he was such a warm guy. And I did the same thing with Fleance, Banquo's son. I led with my heart also as a kid, but he was very different because he's a kid. So I
Mhm.
let my arms flap a little bit more. I was much more loose and let my feet stamp on the ground, which you couldn't tell at the the botanical
Okay.
gardens because
Yeah.
it was on ground. But once we
Yeah.
got into the SB, you could tell the difference because my feet, my footsteps were like echoing all over the place. And Carolyn told me one time that she has her back. She and John are exiting the scene on stage when Christina and I are entering down on the bottom. And she said that one time she was like, "Who is letting a little kid run
That's what I thought
around?"
too.
You
I
did?
thought I thought an audience member was just like needed to pee their pants and was just running to the bathroom because I was like, why? And then I like because I couldn't hear it at the gardens, and so I either and then I started catching on. I was like, I think that's just a new character choice, but you couldn't.
It was there from the beginning.
Yeah,
You just couldn't tell like by hearing it. So that
you
was
know,
such a good compliment. She was like, "Who's letting their kid run
right?
around?"
Whose kid is
Me.
that?
I'm the kid running around.
There's alcohol involved. But